I'm going to be staying in quite a few hotels over the next few weeks.
Why?
Well, one, I'm going to Cleveland to visit the family there. And then my mom and I are going to Florida, taking her to see the Cardinals.
The Florida Cardinals.
Yeah, well, it's spring training. Being a diehard Cubs fan, I'm doing it because I'm a good son. Ooh, and the warmer weather.
Oh, yes.
And Florida's pretty cool. And it's a vacation.
Just get bottled water.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
One thing I'd like to start covering, Chris, here for the next couple of episodes, just to put people, give our listeners some perspective. First, we want to say thank you for listening and thank you for sharing. But just to let you know, we're about halfway through the first season, and we think that's all we're going to do. Of course, if we get a huge uproar and people want more, we're going to do more. But one thing we need before we could do more is we're going to need more listeners and more fans on the Facebook group. Yeah, if you like the podcast, just share with people. That's all we're asking. Thanks. This is Himium Superfans. I'm Chris Venezia.
No, you're not. You're James Hamilton.
Hello, Mother fans. This is the CBS comedy How I Met Your Mother. I mean, it's the podcast about Ted.
And as always, I'm going to do my very best to ruin the show for you.
I bet you are. In fact, let's ruin plot points for the entire series, why don't you?
Yep. Because even though we're only doing the first season, we will have spoilers for the rest of the show. So if you don't want to know that the mother was actually invited to the wedding, but was too mopey to go, then maybe come back to this podcast once you've watched the whole series.
She was mopey because her fiancé was recently murdered.
Yep, by a car.
Or a Carl.
Carl!
So on this one, folks, we're talking about the wedding, a.k.a. Lake. Nobody's going to drive that far. This is the 12th episode of the first season. If you want to join us after this. And this is the first one in 2006.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Written by Courtney Kang and directed by Pamela Ding Dong Fryman.
Very nice.
So what happened in this one, James?
So Ted, being a jerk, nearly breaks up a wedding, so he doesn't disappoint Robin. That's old news. Also, Lily and Marshall talk about their wedding, and Barney has a little Barney in Ted's head.
Yeah, so far what's been going on in the series is Ted's gotten a kiss from Robin on New Year's Eve, and it seems like both of them want to be more than friends, just in time for Ted to have a convenient excuse to ask her out.
Yeah. So what do you remember most about this one, Chris?
Barney hitting on Claudia with the vodka cranberries, and how they all drink vodka cranberries.
It's true.
Which I'd actually say that, while that would probably work, I'd say most of the time, maybe 83%, I also think that the Amaretto Stone Sour is also a solid way to go if you're ordering a drink for a lady.
That's a good bet as well. Cosmo in some scenes.
Yep, could be.
And the ladies around here, it's beer.
Yes. Yeah, that is a much more laid-back approach to drinking. So what was most memorable for you?
Victoria! I know she's only in 5 seconds of this episode, but I was so happy to see her smiling, flirty face.
Yeah, that's your favorite of Ted's girlfriends?
It's my favorite.
Wait, including Tracy?
Yeah.
Okay. So I like Tracy the best.
So this episode begins a little differently. There's no future stuff. I mean, it just says, Ted Future said doesn't even say kids.
Right, it just starts with a monologue about plus ones at weddings. Ted gets an invitation, and he talks about how the invitation forces a self-evaluation on whether or not you see yourself in a relationship in a few months.
Yeah, I kind of like that as sort of the theme of the episode. It's sort of, it definitely hits on a real thing that I don't think I've seen on television before, which is that challenge you get when your friends start getting married. It's like, hey, we found someone. What about you, jerk?
Did you find someone? Are you going to bring him, or are you going to screw it up before then? Are you with him now? If you're not with somebody now, can you get somebody in time?
Can you do it in 6 months, in 3 months?
And if you check the wrong box, that means that you have to do the thing that you already said that you were going to do.
Yes. So I've thought about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have thought about it if they're around the age of the How I Met Your Mother gang.
And Ted thought about it, and he's convinced that he checked +1, and but he doesn't have a date, and the wedding's only a few days away.
We find out that Robin has just broken up with Derek.
Derek got his off-camera dump.
Yeah. Well, he only had like a couple lines in the limo, and otherwise they just show a picture of him.
Yeah, they couldn't afford him because, he is a billionaire.
Right, 100 millionaire?
Yeah. So Barney points out that Derek will be fine. Not to worry, Robin, because he's so rich he could get like 10 women hotter than Robin.
Yep.
Very, very thoughtful.
It was, yeah. And Lily has this look on her face like, you're a jerk. And even Marshall looks at him like, come on, dude. Ted wasn't listening to a word Barney said because all he was thinking about the whole time, go back and watch his face, by the way, because as soon as Robin says that she broke up with Derek, he's planning, he's scheming. His brain is like kicked into overdrive. So Robin leaves the table. He tells the rest of the gang that his feelings for Robin are back. And I argue that they were never gone, really, for a moment. And Lily says so as much. She says that his feelings were buried in a shallow grave.
Yeah, I like that. It's I keep harping on the Buffy thing, but so they keep coming to me. Graves, the dead, death,
blood, and superpowers.
Shallow grave seems like something a vampire might do. Yeah, like you said, Ted's just lifting off facts now. He's like, fact, Robin was into me on our first date. Fact, even though she doesn't want a relationship, we had this amazing kiss on the roof in Purple Giraffe.
Right, I know that's one of your favorite kisses.
And then they kissed again on New Year's Eve, the episode we just talked about. Then the last fact he said, which might be the most relevant one, is Ted needs a date to the wedding, and she's the only one who'll go with him.
Yeah, Ted lists off all of these facts, doesn't let them say a word to them before he gets up from the table to go ask Robin to the wedding.
Yep. So Ted leaves the table, and Barney talks nonstop about how Claudia's too hot for Stuart. He says they've been together 3 years, and the only way Barney could be with someone less attractive is if he was drunk. So there's no way Claudia could be drunk for 3 years. Spoiler alert, it's Stuart who was drunk the whole
time. Right, yes, in the intervention.
Yeah.
That's, maybe he's more tolerable that way. But Lily and Marshall talk about how they can't agree on anything for their wedding. Lily wants to get married in the woods, and Marshall wants an indoor wedding.
Yeah, nice setup for this argument that continues in the next episode and some other episodes where... I think one of my favorite jokes in this running gag is Lily says, Marshall's dad is convinced that if we have an outdoor wedding in New York in the summer, he'll be murdered.
Yeah, well, Minnesotans don't know a whole lot about New York, I guess.
Yeah, well, I guess he got over it. But, I wanted to say something here about Lily's sort of insistence on getting her own way in the wedding. Like, here it's played for laughs. It is funny. It is playful. But there was a part of my mind who was thinking, she's already planning her abandonment or her escape. These sort of things like, no, I'm the bride, I win, I get what I want. It kind of, it's a little darker in retrospect.
I never got the impression that she was planning on leaving yet at this point, that was kind of a last-minute decision in the Milk episode.
I think it was Okay Awesome, where she was talking about taking a pee in the gutter over Julia Roberts any day.
Yep.
I think in that scene, there was Robin planted the seed that, you can go wherever you want, do whatever you want. That's kind of what got the ball rolling for me on that one.
Yeah, I think that the seed is there, like you're talking about. I just don't think that at this point that Lily has applied for that school in San Francisco is what I mean. It's like she has no intentions of leaving. Yeah. She doesn't have a plan or a thought to do it, even if there are things that she would want to do outside of New York and that wouldn't involve Marshall. I don't think she has a plan yet.
So we can call that my crazy theory for the fans this week. Lily's being a bitch about the wedding because she doesn't really want to get married.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yep. That'll be our crazy theory.
While all this is happening, Ted is over talking to Robin at the bar and asks her to come to the wedding. And she says yes. and she runs over to Lily. She's like, we need to go dress shopping right now. It's only 3 days. It's going to be murder, which is, I don't know, I guess a thing for ladies.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with that, so I'm just going to assume that that's correct.
Yeah.
That's exactly how that works. We do get it pretty easy being guys. In fact, for an upcoming wedding that we're in, like the tux cost is, like, you rent it, sure, but the tux cost is pretty low, and apparently dresses are like $1,000. And I'm not even talking about the wedding dresses. Like the bridesmaids' dresses can be like $1,000 right now. I don't even understand. Like, I don't understand like why it's so bad.
They're made out of RAM chips.
What's a RAM chip?
Memory.
Oh, okay. Yes, that would make them expensive. It's so much harder for women to do the shopping, and it's so much more expensive. It's all bullshit, and I say.
Robin succeeded in finding a sexy dress, but we'll talk more about that one later. Before we go, I want to mention, like, Robin is really flirty in this conversation with Ted. Like, she's really into the idea, and here I kind of think she's, this is post New Year. She's broken up. She's kissed him. They've helped each other out on New Year's. They seem to be a good team, and I think this is the moment where she's definitely turned around on Ted. She's interested.
Oh, I agree. She hasn't admitted it yet, and she won't admit it until the next episode. And she may not have even admitted it to herself in this episode, but she definitely does come off as very interested in Ted in this episode. Like when she's wearing the dress later in her apartment, the first time that Ted sees her, she says, like, we are going to have so much fun at this wedding. And like, she's so excited. Like, she's into him. There's no getting around it. She's into him, and it's only in the next episode that she admits to herself and to Lily that she has feelings for him, and that she would date him if he was still interested.
Yeah.
Except that whole episode, he's chasing after Victoria in true sitcom fashion, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. This episode, to me, is interesting because it's before Lily and Marshall bet on whether or not Ted and Robin end up together. In this episode, Marshall is kind of a downer on Ted trying to make things work with Robin, and Lily, on the other hand, spends a great deal of effort talking up Ted when she's with Robin dress shopping, but after the bet, they switch roles on this completely, and Lily doesn't want him to end up with Robin, and Marshall does.
Yeah, I'm glad you looked that up, because that was going through my mind as I was watching this episode, too, and really didn't want to look it up.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Just for some reason it stuck out in my mind because it's when Lily tells Ted that he should go visit Robin in Russia and get the hot air balloon and drop down with 10 dozen roses because that's exactly the kind of stuff that Robin likes and doesn't get freaked out about.
Yeah.
And then Ted's like, yes, I'm going to do that. And then Marshall's like, no, Lily. Not like this. Not like this. And then that's sort of burned in my brain forever on like which one of them has the, which opinion.
Right. So later on, what seems to be the next day, there's a street scene with Ted and Claudia. And this is the first time we see Claudia, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And she's on the phone. She's all frantic. This is where Ted asks, can I bring a date to the wedding? You know what I remember most about this scene?
What?
Ted has dry cleaning. What a tool.
Yeah, I didn't know exactly what he was doing there, but that would make sense that he's getting his dry cleaning. I kept remember seeing alterations in the window. But yeah, Ted is a big tool. So, I want to point out here that when he first runs into her, she's on the phone with the bakery, which is very likely the Buttercup Bakery. She threatens the person on the phone that if the cake is not Tahitian vanilla, that she will burn the little shop to the ground. Which also, the Buttercup Bakery is a little shop.
Yeah.
I wonder if she was on the phone with Victoria, and even if she wasn't, this explains why Victoria is at the wedding. The bakery was apologizing for the cake snafu by having an employee there to make sure that everything cake-related went well.
Cake specialist.
Yeah, because sometimes someone at the reception venue is paid to cut and serve the cake. So if the Buttercup Bakery sends someone to do that, it would actually save a chunk of change and be a pretty decent apology for screwing up the Tahitian vanilla. I don't know why Victoria would be there otherwise.
It never bothered me that she was at the wedding. It just made sense that the baker would be there. But I guess in my head, she was just there because A, she had nothing better to do, or B, she really likes weddings, or C, it seemed like a lot of fun, or D, she was there to get new clients.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Other people that are there are also likely going to be getting married soon.
Yeah.
She could hand out business cards and people like, oh, I love this cake. Oh, you did you? Yeah. Here's a card.
So Ted tells Claudia that he's excited for the wedding, to which she replies she should be, because there's going to be lots of single ladies there. That's when Ted breaks the news. Oh, I'm off the market, bringing a date.
Yep. So they go back and forth on whether or not Ted checked +1, and she accosts him physically.
Yeah,
grabs him by the coat and says that he cannot bring a date.
Cue the ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, there's some fun horror movie music playing when she grabs him. So Ted's kind of freaking out at this point. Says that he's already invited someone.
Yeah. And Claudia is just responding with this sort of crazy logic. Like, she says, I called every guest. I checked +1 for their name. And I asked what their name was. Got the name card granted. It's like everybody who has a meal as a +1 has a meal. I've memorized the guests or who's checked +1 and whose dinner got requested. So, like, how could there possibly be another one?
Yeah, so she says there's no way that there could be anybody that she doesn't have already accounted for. So he plays the "We Go Way Back" card.
Right.
Can I just bring a +1 anyway?
Come on.
And she says no. And I think this is pretty unreasonable, I have to say. I would let it go, because I'm not Ted Mosby. But I think this is pretty unreasonable because as stressful as weddings are, at the very least, some people forget what they put on their response card and bring a date. Some people check +1 and don't bring a date. Like, the worst case scenario I can think of is that Robin should be able to come and just not eat anything. And say, you know what, I screwed up the card, but just we'll eat like a big meal before the wedding. And then we'll go so that you're not really that hungry there. We'll bring a snack or something, put like a little candy bar in your purse.
A little bowl of nuts.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. Oh, right. Yeah. The table snacks. Yeah. I'm sure they're not going to run out of those, and like the little mints that melt in your mouth.
2 cupcakes.
Right. And, right. And there'll be plenty of cake there. So that's like the worst thing that could happen. But, since this is a sitcom, it's a big deal, and it's the main focus of this episode.
Yeah. Meanwhile, back at the bar, Ted tells Barney and Marshall about his interaction with Claudia. Here, Ted says Claudia is crazy, and Barney immediately replies, yeah, but to be fair, she's also hot, which predates the hot crazy scale from season 3.
Right, the Vicky Mendoza diagonal.
Right,
I believe it was. Yes, I did think about that when Ted says that she's crazy and Barney says that she's hot. It's like, yep, there's something there, but we're not there yet. Apparently, that's a little ways down the road.
It's like watching a great author before he's written his novel.
Yeah, it's like a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
So Barney drops a knowledge bomb on Ted. He says that deep down, Ted doesn't want to bring a date. For all his big talk about being ready for a relationship, he's still single. And Marshall agrees with him just visually. It just does like these sort of like visual things where like points at him and nods and stuff because they didn't give him any lines there. But if you've listened to this podcast, you know that I pretty much agree with Barney. That's my stance on it right there.
Yeah, I would say I should mark that down as one of the more memorable Barney performances, too, because it's so unlike Barney. It's like, I'm going to drop some knowledge on you. I don't think you did want to, it's just something about his tone of voice. He's a little more confrontational. He's definitely more sincere and honest than before.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And I love this because Anthony says, Ted, you know what's in the back of your brain?
Here comes the little Barney speech.
Yes, behind a curtain, in a dark little room, secretly controlling your every move. A little Barney. You know what he said? Ted, you will bring no date to this wedding. You will hit on drunk bridesmaids with actual size Barney.
Barney, please stop talking.
Yes, so Ted wants to call Claudia and ask her again, but Marshall says he needs to do the right thing and tell Robin that she can't go.
That little Barney thing, if you notice, like, Marshall's, like, into it, too. He's like, yes, there is a little Barney in you, Ted. Like, it almost makes me wonder, like, did they talk this out earlier?
Maybe.
It's like, hey, when Ted gets here, I'm going to say there's a little Barney in him.
A little Barney.
Just go along with it.
Yeah, well, they've heard it before, but yeah, Marshall might be in on it this time. Be okay with a little Barney speech.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Marshall, like, he's getting in on this dressing down Ted conversation too. He's such a dad in this scene. Like, we've been calling Lily the mom a lot. This is definitely Marshall the dad. Like, his facial expression is completely sincere. He's like, I'm not fucking joking with you. I'm not fucking kidding. This is not an okay behavior for an adult, Ted. You need to adult up and do the right thing by Claudia.
Yeah, and I'll get to that a little bit more later on, my thoughts on Marshall.
Yeah.
Ted goes to Robin to tell her and be the grown-up, like you're talking about, but Lily is there, and Robin got a dress, and she's wearing it, and this is where Lily reveals that she's been talking Ted up all day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Robin's new dress just leaves Ted for a loss for words, other than wow.
Right. He doesn't have the guts to tell her that she can't come to the wedding after seeing the dress, or just in general. I mean, I don't know that he would have been able to pull it off even without the dress, but it certainly didn't help him get the words out.
Yeah, it probably stirred up some other feelings.
Yes, maybe down below.
In the pants area.
Right.
So Robin says that she's super excited about the wedding, and they're going to have so much fun. She seems to be letting Ted know that she's interested in him.
Mm-hmm.
She's, I'll give Ted credit. He did go to the apartment with the intention of doing the right thing. But, as soon as he saw that dress, or he saw Robin's excitement, or he saw the possibility that maybe I could nail Robin tomorrow night, he reverted to fuck what everybody else wants, Ted. It's like what I want mode.
Yeah, like he did with Sarah O'Brien and the matchmaker, and I mean several other times that we've seen so far in season 1. It's all about what Ted wants, and it doesn't matter if the consequences involve hurting somebody else.
Exactly.
So Ted and Lily get a cab back to the apartment, and it's at this point that he can finally reveal to Lily that he doesn't have a +1.
Yeah, they're sitting really close to each other in that cab. Did you notice?
I didn't notice that. I didn't notice it. You pointed it out, and then I took a look, and yes, they are sitting really close to each other. It didn't seem odd to me, but now it does.
Yeah, it's one thing that you will notice a lot in sitcoms. If you notice in sitcoms, when two guys sit next to each other, they sit right next to each other on TV. Try that with your friends. See how it works.
It is kind of uncomfortable to sit, that close to any other person, unless you both really want to.
Yeah. Next time there's a couch with 3 seats, sit right next to your best male friend.
Yes.
See what happens.
I think that they could sneak Robin in, because they suggest, we could sneak her in. I think they could sneak her in because of the aforementioned understanding that the attendance numbers of a wedding have to be a little bit fluid. But, they say that they're not ninjas, and so that they can't do it.
Yeah, it's it's too bad that they didn't film that scene where they try to sneak her in.
Yeah, that would have been fun, too. I like this episode, so I'm cool with what happens, but that would have also been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So Lily suggests that Ted talks to Stuart because they've also been friends a long time. But we don't find out if they went to Wesleyan together or how they know each other, but apparently they go way back. So Ted goes way back with Claudia, which we know. So he must go way back with Stuart. But if Stuart and Claudia have only been together 3 years, who does he really go that way back with? The answer is we never find out.
Right, yes, that is true. So back at the apartment, Lily's reading a magazine that supports her anecdotal get married in the woods idea.
Oh, another magazine joke.
Yes, the Falutes.
Yes. Well, if a magazine says so, we should just go get married in the woods like a couple of squirrels.
Squirrels don't get married, James.
Like you could possibly know that. I love that exchange between the two of them because it's another hint that Marshall might believe in some fantastical things. Like he might believe, just maybe he believes that squirrels get married.
Well, at the very least, from what he said, he believes that Lily couldn't possibly know that they don't.
Yes,
Like,
can't prove
we
it.
must leave this open to the possibility.
Yes,
we must.
It is an option, and I don't know what he's imagining, but an animal wedding reminds me of those old Disney animations with like the birds hanging up decorations and crap.
Yeah, it could be like that, or it could just be like a de facto, like a common law kind of thing.
Is there like a squirrel judge or something?
See, I don't think so. So Ted comes back to the apartment and lets Marshall and Lily know that he got permission from Stuart to bring Robin to the wedding.
Yeah, and Marshall flips out. He says, "Ted, you went around the bride." Like his rage is palpable until he finds out it was Lily's idea.
But he does get mad again at Ted, though, later. We're almost there.
Yeah. At this point, I'm beginning to wonder if Marshall's advice about, telling Ted, you gotta tell Robin she can't come, was actually coming from Marshall's own fear about pissing off his bride, Lily.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. They don't really explore that, but I think that's entirely likely.
I could see how Jason could have played that with, like, in the back of his head, like, this is your character's motivation. It's not going to be on screen, on the page. It's not really going to come out on screen, but we'll know because you're doing a great job.
Right, and it is something that he is dealing with in this episode. There's a whole bunch of wedding stuff and trying to not piss off Lily while trying to be a good fiance while still trying to not give up too much of himself in what he wants in the wedding.
Yeah.
So Ted gets a call from Claudia. He has Lily answer the phone because he has no sack in this episode.
And we find out from Claudia that she and Stuart had a fight, and by the end of it, Stuart calls off the wedding.
Super.
Yeah. Chris, they do this, here's another running gag where they fast forward through the argument and just show you a couple clips from it. But if you pay attention, the Stuart-Claudia argument, at least the parts that we get to hear, could be an argument between Lily and Marshall. If you remember, Stuart says, "All about you. I just want to have some flexibility." Both words Marshall might use in this argument. And Claudia says, "Undermining me at every opportunity," and your mother, which are both things we know Lily might say.
That's true. So when we find out that Stuart and Claudia have ended things, Marshall smacks Ted pretty hard in the arm. And this is what I was saying earlier in the episode. You're right, he's being kind of a dad, and you can see that he's getting more and more angry. This is where it comes out physically, and he smacks Ted. Marshall's a big guy, and you don't really want to get smacked by him, so I'm guessing that hurt a little bit. This is one of the few times that Marshall really knocks some sense into Ted, though. He occasionally tries to steer Ted in the direction of the moral norm, I think, which is something that Marshall is about. But in this episode and the St. Patrick's Day episode, Marshall really rips into Ted.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because that's got me thinking about Marshall in this episode, about him having some sort of sense of responsibility to be the grown-up male in the group. If you think of their group, Ted's trying, but he's kind of screwing up. He's kind of a goof-off. Barney's completely off the tracks. And Marshall, meanwhile, is the only one who's engaged, sort of on the life track that everyone sort of expects young men to be on. So what does that say about his role in life? Like, Claudia and Stuart seem to know him, and at least Lily and Marshall and Ted are all old college friends. So is Marshall seeing himself as expected to take on sort of the dad role here and keep Ted from fucking up? Or, what do you think?
Oh, maybe. Ted even does refer to them as like the quasi parents that he has because he escaped his other parents, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he does kind of see them as parental figures, but then also there are rare occasions where he sort of like takes on the dad role with them. I'd say probably not as often, just off the top of my head. But that's not unlike, in real life where, in a friend group, the roles of, who kind of needs to be knocking sense into who changes periodically. And I think that's pretty normal. I will say that at least Ted's got going for him that his career is actually farther along than Marshall's.
Yeah.
Marshall, yeah, he's the only one with a stable relationship, and he's doing well at that and has been for 9 years. And he's going to school, which is responsible, making a responsible choice for his future. But he's not yet gotten through that, and he doesn't have a career, and he's not a provider. So maybe in that way, because he's not that far along in where he wants to be in life, then he sort of ups the dad ante.
Gives him a little bit more motivation to sort of maybe overcompensate and be like, is he? Do you think he's worried about Claudia and Stuart holding him accountable for the actions of Ted?
It's entirely possible. That is something that can happen. Like, Ted, if you really upset them, then I might not get to go to this wedding. They might, kick me out too, or, I'll show up and they'll give me the stink eye. At the very least, like, I might have consequences because you've messed something up. And that is something that he could be thinking.
Right. So while Lily's on the phone with Claudia, Robin calls Lily's phone, and Ted answers it. And in a conversation meant for Lily, Robin says, "Oh, tell Ted that he'll love my shoes." And Ted says something like, "Oh, I'll tell her to tell me."
Yeah, he's trying to get off the phone really quick.
Yeah.
I'm guessing he's thinking like, oh, she got these shoes and she got them pretty much just to impress me and wanted to tell me about it. So again, back to that, like, she's really into him and wants it to be obvious at this point. So he rushes her off the phone. I want to throw something out here. I never notice a woman's shoes. Like, dress up as much as you want, wear as much or as little makeup as you want, but I will just never be turned on by shoes, I don't think. But that's just me. I don't know if other guys really care about the shoes. Like, would Ted love the shoes?
Well, I don't know if I would know the difference between good shoes and great shoes, but I would definitely notice if, she usually wears sneakers and now she's wearing something fancy. But if she usually wears something sort of kind of fancy and now she's wearing something extra fancy, I might miss it.
Right. Okay, so I think you'd at least notice more than me, though, sounds like.
I'd still say my favorite is barefoot.
Ah, okay. Well, Ted does point out to Marshall that, I think Robin's really into me.
Right.
And then Marshall wants him to focus on what's actually important right now, the thing that he screwed up.
Oh, yes, the wedding that you ruined moments ago.
Yes, it's pretty fresh,
that you
too.
just learned about.
Yes.
So Claudia, like all sitcom characters, decides that the solution to her problems is drinking.
So Claudia is going to meet Lily at McLaren's, while Marshall and Ted go to see Stuart to try to change his mind. But Lily must have had something else to do because she doesn't make it downstairs, like down the stairs to McLaren's to meet Claudia until after Marshall and Ted get across town, talk to Stuart, have a long conversation, and then make it back across town to McLaren's. Lily makes it there about 1 minute before Ted, Marshall, and Stuart arrive.
She's just more efficient.
So there's, some danger there because Barney was down there trying to hit on her, which we're about to cover.
Yeah. So that danger is the danger zone. The barnacle. He and Claudia have ample time to have many vodka cranberries while Lily's upstairs taking a poop or whatever.
Right. And they all drink vodka cranberries.
So, yeah, and my favorite bartender's not on this week. He was out at a bartender's conference.
I thought he wasn't on screen because he doesn't have any lines, because there wasn't any need for Carl to say anything. But Barney seems super pervy and predatory to me in this scene, but it's also really funny because it's so over-the-top fake. It's obvious to the audience that Barney doesn't actually care, and this whole thing is a bit, but it's laughable that she doesn't see right through it. Like, she can hear him order the vodka cranberries, but she can't hear him say, they all drink vodka cranberries, which he says at the same volume.
Well, yeah, but I'll give it some leeway because I think Claudia's mind wasn't on Barney. She was distracted, so he could get away with a little bit more, and maybe he knew that, which is why he didn't change the volume of his voice.
It could be. I'm actually trying to justify like why it's not more pervy, just because it's like too ridiculous to even be considered, like real.
Well, I don't know. I kind of feel like he was trying to pick her up and take her home and sleep with her. They set it up that he was upset about Stuart not being a 10. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be the motivation here. But at the same time, I mean, he proves later in the series that he will fuck his best friend's ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
But is the, adding on to the stakes, she's a runaway bride, there's a wedding tomorrow. Are you really going to be that guy, Barney? Are you that evil?
Yeah, I mean, probably. that's my guess, at least. That'd be my vote.
Yeah. So several minutes later, at Stuart and Claudia's apartment, Ted and Marshall show up with the intention of talking him into getting back together with Claudia. But it doesn't really go all that well.
It doesn't, because Stuart's really happy to be single again. He only remembers... Yeah, I know, right? You can see Claudia. You can see what they both look like. And
so not a 10.
Right? And it is funny, because it's like, no, you can't do better. I mean, even if occasionally you guys sometimes have a problem, I don't know. It actually seemed like their relationship wasn't that bad. You find out later that, I mean, it's kind of about as bad as it gets by season 9. Because... Stuart's there with somebody else. Yeah, maybe she's into by that point, but I don't know. They don't really explain a whole lot. So forget all that for just a moment. Stuart wants to be single again. He only remembers the good parts about being single. He says he wants to own porn again, which I think really dates this episode because I don't think that people own porn in 2016.
Well, you got to have something in the tornado shelter.
Well, I suppose, yeah, if you have a tornado shelter, then there you go. Right.
It's your bomb shelter porn.
Your digital copy doesn't work because you ran out of power weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's a tip for you preppers. Don't forget that one. So Ted tries to convince Stuart to get back together with Claudia in hopes mostly that he doesn't have to pay for that wedding.
Right.
Marshall has different advice, yet again.
Yeah, he says to not get married. And even Stuart wasn't expecting that one. I'm going to paraphrase here, but I think Marshall was saying, if you'd rather be single than be with this woman, then don't get married. That said, I agree with Marshall, but I don't think that means that they should necessarily break up, just not go through with the wedding. Maybe break up, or maybe couples counseling, but probably getting married is not the right idea if you would much, much rather be single than go through with the wedding. I think that I would have to agree with that. And
also, if couples counseling doesn't work, try partner swapping.
Right, I'm sure Barney would be okay with that, although he doesn't have a partner to swap. But I bet he could probably pick one up.
At the airport.
Pick her up at the airport.
Yeah. So Ted and Marshall are doing their best to confuse Stuart, and we get to see what's going on at the bar. Barney's still hitting on that Claudia, and Lily's still taking out crap or whatever.
Yeah, she's not quite made it there yet.
It's been an hour and 17 minutes.
I'm not sure how that's possible, but she hasn't. To me, Barney looks like he's trying his closing move when Lily does finally get there. But she grabs him, his mom Lily, she grabs him by the ear and drags him away from the table. Because Neil is such a character actor, I'm guessing she had probably a really good hold of his ear, too. So it's probably not the most comfortable scene to shoot.
They give Lily the threatening, scary line, which is something like squeezing his testicles so hard that his eyes pop out and then she'll feed him like grapes.
Yeah, and he's too curious to not ask whether she would hypothetically be feeding him his eyes or his balls at that point. Like he has a preference.
Right.
Like, why would you ask that? Like, being fed your eyes might be better?
Yeah, I had thoughts along the similar line, like, what was his plan if she said something else? It's like, no, your eyes, or no, one of each. Or it's like, is being fed your testicles better than your eyes?
I can't imagine that either one is okay.
No.
So Stuart shows up with Marshall and Ted at this point. Stuart and Claudia apologize to each other. Stuart tells her that Marshall told him not to marry her.
And that she freaks out, tries to attack him.
Yeah, you're right. So that was not. He could have phrased that differently. But yeah, she lunges at Marshall.
Yeah, Stuart just needed to hear someone say that he can't have Claudia in order for him to want her again. That's my second fan theory.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thought of losing her, like all he was thinking about was being single, but he wasn't thinking about what he was giving up.
Right.
Like he thought about what he would be gaining, not losing. So yeah, Marshall got him to think about it, even if the specific advice was not the best there.
And while they're making up and making out, as the kids say, the camera pans across the gang. Barney looks disgusted. Marshall looks pretty happy until he sees Barney's expression, and then he gets a confused look on his face. Lily looks happy, and the happy music breaks long enough for Ted to selfishly ask, "So where are we on that +1 thing?"
Right, way to go, Ted. Only thinking about yourself again.
To be fair, I'd say there's probably not a better time.
Well, yes, I suppose that's true.
Yeah. So this sets Claudia off again, so they calm her down with a little more vodka cranberry, and she finally agrees to let Robin come to the wedding.
Hooray!
Yay!
So the day of the wedding, Ted goes to pick up Robin, but she gets a call that Sandy Rivers is unable to anchor the news. This is the first mention of Sandy. We don't find out why he was unable to be there and anchor that night, but we find out that he's not.
Yeah, could it be a little touch of the syphilis?
It very well could be.
Just a little dusting. So Robin's asked to be the anchor for that night, and you can see this in Ted's face. Like, Ted encourages her to do it, despite it meaning that she will miss the wedding.
Yeah, he's got to be the hero.
Yeah. So up until this point, Ted, we've been pointing out about how Ted has been putting his own wants first. Here, when he hears Robin on the phone, you could just see it in his face. He lets go of his want to have her come with him to the wedding, have this date night, get laid maybe, and he's just lets it go. Like all that fighting with Claudia and Stuart, it's just lets it go. And just gives it up in an instant. And he seems to be perfectly okay with it too, content, later at the wedding.
I would like to believe that is what's going on, and maybe it is.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is. Maybe I should just give Ted the benefit of the doubt that up until this point we've been saying how selfish he can be, and this is really nice that he just thinks of someone other than himself and says, go and do it. But they've already set up, well, not already by this point in the series, but in the series they set up that Ted will often do things that seems heroic, and not thinking about the consequences, he does it to appear as a hero, not because it's like the right thing to do, or that it means that he's selfless. It's so that he can appear to be something great, like puts himself on a pedestal.
Right, like he's the kind of guy who would fly across country to go look for a locket.
Yeah, something like that.
A normal person would just get you a very nice card.
Right, yes, exactly. Or say that your ex-fiancé can move in with you.
Yeah.
Like in the case of Klaus.
That's all normal.
Right. So sometimes Ted is heroic to his own detriment, and does it for attention. Is it this time? Is he being heroic, or is he actually being selfless? I'll leave that up to the audience.
Let's get to the crab puffs, Chris.
All right. So we get to the wedding reception. Lily and Marshall agree on the crab puffs, so they at least agree on one thing for their wedding. Yes.
Tell me if this is a dick move or not. Claudia comes up to Ted and says, "Here's your RSVP card." Sort of hands it to him. I want to say flicks it to him. She hands it to him, and he did not check +1.
I thought that was fine. What I thought was kind of a less kind thing to say was when Stuart and Claudia both come over and they say they want to get a picture with the woman that almost ended their relationship. I thought that was just a little too specific.
Yeah.
Like, if you're in that situation and you want it, just know in your mind that that's why you want it and say, we would like to get a picture with your date, Ted. Everyone can know what you're talking about, but you don't have to say it out loud. That it's like, Ted, this was, you almost ruined our relationship. I thought that the +1, I could see how you'd think that was kind of a dick move. But, like, at that point, if I was her, I'd probably do the same. They're like, also, for what it's worth, I was right.
If it was Stuart instead of Claudia, if it was someone else's wedding, I might have more of a problem with it. But I think Claudia kind of gets a pass because it's what Ted did.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was not very cool, but I think she deserved it. So while Barney tries to talk strategy on picking up bridesmaids with Ted spaces out.
Mm-hmm.
And while he thinks about how he was hoping for this night to be a turning point in his life, future Ted recalls that he wasn't totally wrong. It was the night that he met Victoria.
Yeah, and then she sees him from across the room and smiles.
It's different from, but similar to me, to the moment that he first saw Robin. It was like something from an old movie, where the sailor sees the girl across the crowded dance floor, turns to his buddy and says, "See that girl?"
Oh yeah, you just know she likes it dirty.
Right, so it has that kind of feel from the pilot, like where Ted is sort of spacing out, being like, gosh, I wish my life could turn around tonight.
Mm-hmm.
When is that going to happen? And just stares out into the abyss, and then, boom, Victoria, right there. And it just sort of had that feel.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know she's only on screen for like 3 seconds, but she just really stole the show for me. Like, just that shot, it was like they were quoting the pilot with the shot of Robin where she does that sort of 3/4 look and the smile, and here it's very similar. It is across the room, and it's just sort of like a pause and then a smile comes on. It just seems very genuine.
Yep, and we don't get the side to and dirty comment from Barney.
Yeah. We'll save that for later. More about the wedding next week.
We had some guest stars.
Yeah, the Williams sisters.
I noticed that, and I don't think that they are sisters.
Probably not. Virginia Williams as Claudia.
And we've got Matt Boren as Stuart.
And Ashley Williams as Victoria.
Yep. So first use of Claudia and Stuart. They come back for 5 and 7 episodes, respectively.
Yes, not together in every episode.
That's true.
That tells you something.
Yeah. It's not good.
No.
It's not good.
How's life at home, Stuart?
Not good.
No.
It's not good.
No. So this is the first time we get to see Claudia and Stuart's home, which does come back in the intervention.
We get to see a little bit of the reception hall, and like you said, the streets of New York, specifically Ted's douchey dry cleaning place.
Yes. In terms of what the characters were into, I think we went into it pretty well, but just to summarize, I think this is the episode where Ted wants to, yet again, not disappoint Robin at the jeopardy of his friendships with others.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Robin's motivation to me was unclear because she didn't really get enough camera time.
No.
But she makes it known multiple times that she's really excited to go to the wedding with Ted.
Yeah, if anything, her modest performance in this episode was about setting up superior performance in the follow-up episode.
Right. So Lily wants to convince Marshall to get married in the woods, and she wants Ted and Robin to get together. She's definitely motivated by that.
Yeah. Marshall is the voice of reason, the dad. He was like, why are people wanting to get married in the woods? Why are people going around the bride? Why does Marshall have to explain things to these people?
It is funny because he's the only one making any sense in this episode.
He's like playing his dad. It's
like Marvin Erickson Sr. showed up to straighten these kids out because they can't do anything right.
Yes,
you don't get married in the woods. You don't go around the bride. What is wrong with all of you people? Anything that Barney's doing.
Yes, and Koreans always have umbrellas. Those are just the things.
Oh, that's true. His dad's racist. I forgot about that.
It's the good kind of racist.
So Barney wants to sleep with Claudia, and he tries to convince Ted that you should never check +1.
Never check +1, Ted. Good advice or terrible advice?
When I think about Barney trying to convince Ted that you should never check +1, what stands out to me is that never. It's like, I think that that's probably not the approach that one should take in life. Like, I think that you should sometimes check +1 when it makes sense.
Yeah, you should never use absolutes.
Exactly.
So, Chris, what's the life lesson from this episode?
Do not have a $400,000 wedding.
So that's it for this one, folks. How did you feel about it? Shoot us an email, himyumsuperfans@gmail.com.
And each week, James and I get so much out of discussing the episode. We really enjoy doing this, and we hope you enjoy it, and we hope you share it.
Thanks for sharing. Join our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/groups/himyumsuperfans.
If you like the show, the best way to help us out is to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. You don't have to write a review.
Yeah, you could just write facebook.com/groups/himyumsuperfans in that space.
And give us that 5 stars. It really helps us with getting discovered and helps us grow our audience so that we can keep making the show. And I would like to say that some people have done that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's actually happened.